want to welcome everybody to the Daily Cheat Sheet here with the Dude and Golan. I want to get right to this. And, last night, President Trump was on Laura Ingraham. And this is an incredibly rough topic that he got into, but he stood his ground. And this is his point of view in regards to the H-1 visas and where they got into it about allowing 600,000 workers into the country. And he was brutally honest with her. And he said, there are a lot of people that are just not talented enough to do certain jobs. It was not a knock on people. It was simply saying, he was talking about, let's say, a battery factory in Georgia with Koreans, saying you can't just pull somebody off the unemployment line, man, and put them in a battery factory and teach them how to build and refine batteries. This is a reality. Okay, I'm not defending or whatever. I'm just simply saying what he said is a reality. People want to distort that reality and think you could put 100 of us in a battery factory. Well, let's see what happens at that battery factory in a week.
I replace my kids' batteries all the time. I'm like the battery expert in this house. These kids are always going through batteries. But the president's absolutely right. If we want to beat China, there's two things we need. We're going to need energy plants for the AI data centers, and we're going to need these battery plants for all the stuff that run on batteries, the cars and everything else that we're trying to build. The AI thing, the head of NVIDIA came out and said, we're going to lose the race against China because of energy. It's the number one thing. It takes us 20, 30, 40 years to put up a nuclear powered energy plant. It takes China, they have, I think, 30 of them under development. They have a new one under development every week. So that's in China. China's also building coal-fired plants throughout Africa. So they're polluting the crap out of the environment. They get away with that. That's what people refer to as the green scam, because they give China a pass to pollute all they want, while we need a curb and stop farting. So that's a whole other discussion. We've gotten into it in the past, but the battery thing, he's right. You can't just take people off the street, off of unemployment lines, and put them into a super high skilled job like that. And we need those people to be building these plants. These are the deals that were made. They should not be here illegally, which is what that roundup in Georgia was all about. They all went home in cuffs. A nice little lesson there was learned. Don't do it, under the radar. Do it above board. And that's what he's trying to do with these H-1B visas. There's also a lot of scams.
Quickly? Can I say something quickly? You should be messaging for the White House.
Fantastic.
This is something I continuously say. In less than a minute and a half, you summed up exactly what they should have been messaging and how they should have been messaging it.
Yeah. So there are other parts of it. The people that are the detractors, they're against the H-1B visa program. They're also right to an extent. There's a lot of people that are in Silicon Valley. They get pulled over from India and some of these other countries, and they're being underpaid. It's a form of slave labor.
Wait a second. We're talking about two entirely different things.
Entirely different
who
things.
Are detracting are thinking of the H-1B visas like what Project Firewall is effectively there to crack down upon, right? Those abuses where firms are hiring cheap labor, foreign labor to displace and replace Americans. That's fine. That's the way that shouldn't exist. Well, hang on. I'm just going to say, for those people, that's not the same thing, though. Those people who are saying, I don't like H-1B visas as a general rule, these are the same people who are like, America first, America only, isolation. Both extremes are stupid, right? If you're going to treat America's workforce like an afterthought, you'll be held as like an afterthought. You'll be held accountable. That makes sense. But on the other hand, we also can't say zero immigration. We can say smart immigration. We can say that if we shut off global talent entirely, we risk losing the high ground in defense, in tech, in cyber, in semiconductors, in all of that stuff. Ultimately, we are going to need some people that come from outside the United States simply because we don't have the training. We don't have those people that are ready, market ready for those jobs. And those people should be coming in and making America stronger. And the ones that shouldn't be coming in should be kept out. It's really as simple as that. It's not a zero-sum game in either direction.
No, absolutely agree. And there is an effort underway to bring in the best and the brightest, because we do want people coming here to build companies, to contribute to companies. I was just giving a speech last night to young entrepreneurs, and one of the guys
while he was doing CrossFit, I think. But yeah, continue.
Well, it was
a speech.
It was in between. It was right after Muay Thai, before. Yeah, it was, we had to squeeze it in. But one of the guys there is he's working on a private space station. I mean, these guys are incredible. His wife works for Anduril, the defense contractor company that was started by Palmer Luckey, and this thing is just taking off like a rocket. They're building insane drones to defend America, and it's really, really cool stuff what they're doing. But I mean, the point is that, and the reason that I brought up the H-1B visa scam as well in this, even though it has nothing to do with this argument, is because I don't want someone coming and saying, Men doesn't know what he's talking about. Look at all these Indians that have come to San Francisco, taken away American jobs. They're not highly skilled and they're being underpaid. And these companies are actually using a form of slave labor because they bring them in and they're tied to that company with their H-1B visa and all of that. So I wanted to defang that argument and acknowledge it, but also defang it. It has nothing to do with what the Trump administration is talking about here. They need these highly skilled laborers to build the battery factories, which is going to help us win at this race that we have with China. And the
Well
same
said,
thing
both
works
of
for the
you.
AI data centers. We need highly skilled laborers. And, one of the things I was telling the kids at this thing was, if you wanted to become an electrician, a data center manager, like those are going to be the jobs in the future that AI can't take away. These things are in huge demand. Welders, electricians, data
Plumbers.
center managers, like all that stuff. Plumbers, of course. So I'm encouraging kids to get into the trades.
I agree with you 100%, Miguel. And there's also part of it where he said about the 600 students from China that
That's a problem.
and that
Yeah.
was that was definitely not a great comment. 600 Chinese students. So it wasn't exactly the greatest of
Well,
messaging.
what he did there, let's just jump in on that for a second,
Yeah.
because he made a deal with the Chinese government to allow 600,000 students to come. And that had to do with, like, it was a tit for tat over the rare earths and everything else they're trying to sort out with the Chinese. And he threw them a bone and said, you know what? I'm going to grant 600,000 student visas to the Chinese. Here's why
Yeah,
that's a problem.
except every time the Chinese students are flowing in those numbers, we have espionage, we have IP theft, we have undue influence. This is something that is happening on a consistent basis. But we had half of that, less than half of that, just a couple of years ago, and now suddenly it's doubling in an era when we are trying to keep out people who are unqualified. It's not like 600,000 Chinese students are all outweighing the American marketplace. It actually doesn't jive.
Well, what's going on there is, yes, there's a risk of espionage. We've caught a lot of Chinese students stealing American
Nonstop.
tech nonstop. That is
And teacher.
huge. It's a way for them to steal our technology. And it's also a giant win for these woke universities that are indoctrinating our kids. They haven't fired the teachers. UCLA, I just saw this today. UCLA still has the teachers holding these conferences with these Muslim extremists on Zionism and how Zionism is white colonialism and all this other garbage. They're
Often in the
still
Barbara
doing
Streisand
it.
Memorial Center.
They are still doing it. And he's giving them a huge win by allowing 600,000 full paying students to come from China and give these universities a ton of money.
That's the
He
thing,
should
by
have
the way.
cut that off.
Men, you just brought up something really important. Those Chinese students pay full tuition. Those Chinese students are helping to prop up these U.S. colleges. And just a moment ago, if I recall correctly, we were trying to fine and cut funding and all of that. And this basically gave them a pipeline to basically cover their expenses. So that's yet another thing that doesn't jibe with what Trump has been saying. I really dislike this particular policy.
So it's interesting. I'm amazed at the knowledge you both have on these topics. I really am truly amazed. So kudos, great work. But so you're going for this. We have 600,000 Chinese students that might come into this country that won't be affected by DEI, but might steal our technology and spy on us. That is the trade-off, essentially, both of you are saying.
And let's add what Men said a moment ago, too, which is that China has a vested interest in there being a dissent within the U.S., whether it's the government, whether it's universities, whether it's whatever. So these Chinese students are also going to make sure that they help turn up the volume on all the stuff that Men was talking about that they haven't stopped yet, all the DEI, all the pro-Palestine, anti-American, anti-West stuff, too. They're going to be part of that.
Correct. So there are some things that this administration is doing really well, and there are other things that are head scratchers, and you're like, what the hell is going on there? Like, you're making all these deals and making Qatar, this tiny little country of 300,000 citizens, they are the kingmakers now. They have 300,000 citizens. I checked it. They are the kingmakers, and they're the ones that are financing, funding, and pushing Al Jazeera to push out all this anti-West garbage. They're the ones that have financed our universities to install professors that are anti-West. Like, what are you doing? How does that make any sense? Now you're letting in 600,000 Chinese kids because you need some rare earth minerals. You just cut a deal with Australia to bypass China and get the rare earth minerals from them.
I'm gonna add two things to this too, which is beyond the fact that this 600,000 students are going to bring in what, about 40 billion dollars to prop up these universities. These students are not on the whole staying in the United States. So it's not that we educate them and we really build them up and then they stick around to help out the US. They go back and they've taken what they've gleaned here after propping up these anti-West universities. They go back to China and they become our competition.
So, by the way, what I got confused by was Qatar has about 2.6 million population, but 300,000 citizens.
Right, the 300,000 citizens. You said how many? 2 point what?
It has a population of 2.6 million and 300,000, so which should make everybody say to themselves, what the hell is going on in Qatar?
Well, it's 300,000 citizens, and then it's 2,300,000 slaves. They bring in tons of people from India and Pakistan, and they treat them like crap. They are servants. They are tied to the posts. Some of them are beaten. Some of them are starved to death. A lot of them fall off of makeshift scaffolding while they're building all these buildings, and they just die, and the families back home get nothing. And even if they don't die, if they do really well, the families get back home are getting a pittance. They pay them crap. You talk about slave labor. That is what's going on there.
Yeah,
Yep,
you're talking
100%.
about, and the workforce in Qatar, the labor force is like 95% of that labor force are these migrants that are treated like trash. And I remember reading once a whole thing about how when they were making the Great Wall of China, half the wall is made up of the bodies that fell inside of it. Qatar is still operating by the same security regulations.
So I'm just going to say one thing to close this out. We're not attacking Trump. We're just questioning him right now, and we're scratching our heads. But this does leave a lot of fodder for people online to capitalize on, as we're witnessing. So they better come up with a strategy and a message that for all those people online, which is a hell of a lot of people that are looking at this going, what the hell is going on? Day before Veterans Day, you had Jelani there. It's not a great optic. What Men's always been referring to with Qatar, everything we're referring to, they really have to work on this for good or bad.
Qatar and Turkey are the biggest problems right now for the Middle East.
Yes. Not the Middle East, the world.
For the world.
The world, yeah, for sure. And
they're not good guys.
With Iran being, a close follow-up now that its nuclear program is taken out, but Iran is rearming to the teeth when it comes to ballistic missiles. So their plan, and they've stated this, is to be able to fire off 2,000 missiles at a shot at Israel or America or whoever they want to. Cannot happen. So if you're talking about the Middle East heating up again, it looks like we're going there. There's going to be another conflict with Iran, and I doubt the Americans will do it. It'll probably be the Israelis. There's going to be another conflict with Lebanon because they are not disarming Hezbollah. The Hezbollah militias are building back up again, and Hamas is not disarming. They are building up again, and there's 200 Hamas fighters stuck in a tunnel, and Qatar, Turkey is pressuring the United States to pressure Israel to let these guys out. I don't understand the calculus there. These are bona fide terrorists hiding in a tunnel that were waiting to attack. They got stuck when Israel took out all of their shafts that let them out of the tunnel. So
yeah, I know the photos. It's a remarkable photo for anybody that's 200 people in uniforms and black masks on, holding guns, and go on. Let's figure out a way to get them out of Rafah, and out of the
These
tunnels.
poor guys.
Yeah, and coincidentally, President Trump wrote a letter today to Chaim Herzog, the president of Israel, to pardon Bibi Netanyahu. So I'm not going to go all crazy, but
yeah, this on the eve, remembering that a little bit of his leaked. A friend of the show, Guy Goldstein, and I were talking about earlier tonight, the UNSC, the UN Security Council resolution about Israel that America is putting forward. I'm not hopeful. This seems like a pretty bad week so far between inviting the jihadis into the White House, bringing 600,000 Chinese nationals in, and we'll see what they do at the UN. So I'm not real excited about this.
Well,
week
here's
so
the major problem. It really is a major problem, and I love Trump. And when you're a transactional person, you think you can deal transactionally with everything. And don't mistake the heads of Qatar and of Jordan and of certain other countries for this person from Syria. Very different. These people are not, the head of Saudi Arabia has never fought. Okay. This guy carrying two heads. It's a very different thing that we're dealing with. And I don't know how it's going to turn out, but it is a very confusing week. Imagine if we're confused, how confused everybody else is. Well, go on. What's going on?
Yeah, we actually know what we're talking about, and we don't know what the hell's going on.
So it all comes back to the administration and some of the policy decisions that they're making that make no sense. And we're trying to square that and make it make sense, and it just doesn't. So, I hope to the
And you're the one that's always holding on. You're the biggest proponent of give it time.
Yeah, but when it comes to this stuff, there is no time. It's not like you could give Qatar time. We've given them time. And I told you about a month ago when they started getting involved in the brokering of the deal to end the war in Gaza. We'll know if they've changed, if Al Jazeera has changed. And Al Jazeera has absolutely not changed. They are still spewing anti-American, anti-West vitriol. And Trump is still treating them like the big kingmakers, peacemakers. And he just made a statement about Erdogan.
It's important too. It's Al Jazeera did for a time. They got rid of their entire higher ups within the organization, and for a time we got to see an actual tempered Al Jazeera where the cover story wasn't Israel, wasn't Jews every 2 seconds, and that was when, as you say, Judah, Trump was in the middle of a transaction with them and got the hostages out and started doing the rest, and then suddenly we just saw a reversal. As men
went
said,
right back to what they
Al
were doing.
Jazeera has turned that volume back up to 11.
Well, look at what Witkoff said, by the way. Look at what Witkoff said yesterday. And he said, well, if we could disarm these people in the terror tunnels, right? If they come out and say they want to disarm, that'll be a good step moving forward. Nobody wants them. That's the deal.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that nobody wants them because they're going to wind up going to Qatar and Turkey. Forget about that part. You're letting 200 bona fide terrorists out of a tunnel when they're trapped. These guys were waiting to attack. They got trapped. Their fate should be sealed in that tunnel. The fact that the U.S. is advocating to release these guys, and they're saying that if they come out and lay down their weapons, then that's a great example to the rest of Hamas that lay down your weapons and you'll go to Qatar and Turkey and get 4-season, passes to have a giant suite and live out in lap of luxury. No way. No way, Jose. That should not be the way it goes.
I honestly don't. I mean, Mend, I'm with you. I 100%. I don't even understand what this conversation is about.
Can I tell you something?
We have 200 rapists and murderers inside a tunnel and they are trapped. Well, let's go get some lunch.
Can I tell you something weird, though? And I mean this. So obviously, the America-only people are talking about the H-1 visas today, right? Obviously, never in depth as much and knowledgeable as the two of you. But I was talking to Mend, and we've brought this up. You know how legacy media has always been? It gets all its talking points from the White House. So when you listen to now what legacy podcasting you want to call it, none of them are talking about the Qatar thing. It's if you can't put two and two together, that none of them are talking about Qatar, the fact that we've offered them, American troops on the ground in Doha, Syria, Saudi Arabia next, go on. How come nobody's talking about that? How much financial stake do these podcasters have? They're not willing to call out the other things that are going on. They're still stuck on Israel, right?
You're asking that rhetorically because the answer.
Of course, because it seems it's almost exactly like they're all getting the same messaging.
But no, it's not. No, I'm going to push back on that. It's not they're getting the same messaging. It's, you know what it is? I'm going to go back to when everyone was praising bin Laden on TikTok. Okay, here's what happened, and this is documented. The Chinese government wanted to see if they could get everyone in America to start, lapping up bin Laden. And so they took one influencer and paid that influencer a substantial amount of money and pushed a bunch of likes and pushed their content in front of a bunch of people. And 2 million likes later, other people who had never heard of bin Laden probably, who didn't understand what 9/11 was and certainly weren't praising bin Laden, saw that this random person praised bin Laden, this guy, and got 2 million likes. 2 million likes. I want 2 million likes. So then they repeated what that person had said. And then they got 1 million likes. And then other people were like, whoa, look who's getting the likes. And then they repeated it. And they continued doing that ad infinitum until TikTok shut down the PSYOP. Okay. It's the same thing here. If you have Dave Smith suddenly becoming super famous, going on Rogan, going on stage at TPUSA, and all he has to do is badmouth the Jews, how about I
Did
badmouth the
TPUSA
Jews?
have?
I want to
Did
be
they have him on?
famous.
Yeah, they did.
Of
Yeah, they
course they
did. And
did.
I told you, Golan, what's really funny about what you're saying is because before I was on the phone with Mend about an hour and a half ago. Mend, what did I tell you how you could get that 100,000 likes?
Yeah, you just say I'm no longer a Zionist, and boom.
Yeah,
And
a
boom,
100. You'd get 100,000 likes. You could say former Zionist no longer likes
in
the
a
Jews.
second. But that's my point. If you, and now if people who have no idea, people who maybe even who once had ideals or actually are aware of what's going on, see how popular anti-Jewish and anti-Israel rhetoric is, I guess we can repeat that. I just watched Megyn Kelly absolutely throw everybody under the bus, that whore, by lying, obviously, and by taking things out of context in very specific ways to make them seem like, oh, it has to do with Israel. Men, were you the one who sent me what was the thing you sent me? Humpty Dumpty? Can you read that real quick? Can you pull that up while I'm finishing my thought here? Because I want you to read it. It's hilarious. But basically, if everyone's saying that anti-Israel rhetoric's getting the millions of views, well, it's not that they're coming from the same playbook. It's that they're just repeating each other. It's just a giant circle jerk of everyone saying the thing that's going to get them likes. Period.
Right. And if you noticed yesterday, before Men goes to that, so all of a sudden now Nikki Haley's son is being platformed, right? They're calling it based or something like that
Yeah.
because he is going against his mother. So this is a trend. Okay. And I don't blame people. It's like, listen, follow the money. You want to make money? This is where the money's at. If you want to be popular and make money, say shit on Israel, shit on America for many things, shit on everything, and you will have a following. Don't go against Qatar. Don't go against the real issues. Don't talk about the real issues. But just and what I said to Men before is it's frightening is that there's going to be a next generation of people doing the same exact things. So for every father that's raising his daughter, right, the Chris Rock joke, every father has
Mm-hmm.
has one job to keep his baby off the pole. Right, that was the Chris Rock joke. It was one of my favorite Chris Rock jokes. Apparently, that's failed because you have a lot of babies on poles on Fans Only or OnlyFans, whatever it's called. Now you're going to have the same next gen, right? That follows suit, man. That realizes you want to make money talking. You don't have to have any new ideas. Just shit on people. You can make a fortune.
As long as you shit on the right people. Men, read that thing.
All right, so the thing was Humpty Dumpty. We all know the tragic story. He sat on a wall. He fell. Or did he? And why was everyone so quick to reach out to reach that conclusion? My next guest, a historian, took a second look at the incident, and what he discovered will have you asking questions about Israel. And this is Tucker Carlson's next guest. This is a Tucker Carlson.
It's like the Babylon
I
Bee
mean,
thing that I
it's
read from
brilliant.
yesterday. But also, what you forgot to mention about Megyn Kelly was that she absolutely flat out lied. Listen, Ben Shapiro
100%.
was up. I knew the second Ben Shapiro said what he said that he was going to get into trouble for it because it was the phrasing that he said it. Erica Kirk 100% I mean, Candace Owens
Candace Owens.
100% inferred that Erica Kirk had something to do with Charlie Kirk's death. There is zero doubt about that. Did she say it explicitly? No, she did not. So that was Ben Shapiro's mistake. But if you listen to her shows, she's accused the president of being on it.
There was a couple of things. One is there was a guy named Dylan,
Seth Dillon.
Seth Dillon. So she said that she never accused Seth Dillon of being in on it. She did. She had a cover photo come out that says, "I know what you did last summer," and it had the Prime Minister of Israel and had this Dylan guy and had a couple of other people. So she did accuse Dylan of being in on it. And as far as the wife being in on it, she said that everyone inside TPUSA was in on it.
That's exactly my point. That's exactly my point. With the second Shapiro said, she said Erica was in on it. That was the out. Shapiro's mistake was not saying exactly, and how could you say everything exactly?
Right, exactly.
This is how these grifters get away with it. This is how the Tuckers get away with it. This is how now Megyn Kelly's and the Candace Owens.
But remember what she said. I'm going to quote her. Okay. I'm starting to think that the assassination of Charlie Kirk was something akin to a regicide, right? The assassination of a king to install a new ruler who the king would never have approved of. Who's the new ruler of TPUSA, guys? Do you know?
It's Erica.
It's
Gotcha.
Erica Kirk. So we can pretend that she didn't say it because she didn't use the words Erica Kirk killed Charlie, but she made very clear what it was that she was inferring. The new ruler of Kirk's organization is Erica Kirk. And by the way, she also touched base on other conspiracy theories like a hug with J.D. Vance. I don't even like J.D. Vance, but can you imagine someone so slimy as to pretend you were someone's friend and then to leak their text and then start talking shit about their wife and everything else? And then Megyn Kelly's going to run interference for her? I mean, this is Harpy Kingdom
And
over
you know what
here.
you know what the pathetic thing here is? Listen, we've all studied the Talmud. It was part of our education. Talmud is law, and it teaches you to, if this is true, then that's almost certainly
Right.
true.
It's almost
Megan Kelly's
mathematical.
right. So Megan Kelly's a lawyer, right? Which in a sense, so Megan Kelly really is playing the fool, right? I mean, she's playing a lot more because obviously a lot of money is involved in this, especially since she's signing a new deal or signed a new deal with XM. But let's not kid ourselves. She's a lawyer. Okay, there's no way that if you listen to what is being said, you can't extrapolate one from the other, or as we say, kal v'chomer, right?
But she's
If
doing this over and over again, by the way. It wasn't just about this. She also had the thing recently where Tucker, of course, Tucker, I don't even want to call him a liar. He is a paid off operative and he's doing his job as a foreign operative.
She Candace Owen also tweeted, Erica knows everything.
Yeah. No, no,
No, that, by the way, there are multiple things. But wait, but I don't want to lose this Megyn Kelly point real quick. Is that Tucker made a whole show about how, oh, Charlie told me to go all in on Israel, go all in on Israel.
Go
And then,
Max. Go Max.
no. Hold on. That's what came next is that Megyn Kelly said, I found a video in which Charlie went up to Tucker before he went on stage and said, hey, go Max, which is not verification of any of the bullshit that Tucker had been saying. And then Megyn Kelly, a lawyer who understands what evidence looks like and how cause and effect works, and facts not in evidence, said, thereby proving what Tucker had said. That's what I'm talking about. These people are all liars. They are all complicit. They are all harpies, and they all should be punished.
100%. I want to move on a little bit to the story that'll never die, which is, I guess, the Democrats released more emails from the Epstein stuff.
Oy.
And I want everybody just to understand something. Every single site you'll go to, the end of the paragraph will say, in no way has President Trump been accused, been found guilty, been found everything. It's like at the end of every story where they talk about suicide, you read like, if you're having issues with suicide, call this number. At the end of every Epstein story with Trump, it ends with, in no way was President Trump. So they pull up some 2011 email between Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, where they're referring to Virginia Giuffre, who has sworn that Trump had nothing to do with this stuff. And
Wait.
and
Tell our listeners who Virginia Giuffre is to
Virginia
understand why
Giuffre
it
is
matters that she says that.
Virginia Giuffre is the one is why Ghislaine Maxwell's in prison, and and she's the reason why Jeffrey Epstein was found guilty in, I believe, in 2008, I want to say, or 2006. And she worked at Trump's club in Mar-a-Lago. Trump hired her father as the groundskeeper. He was, according to Virginia Giuffre in her book, President Trump couldn't have been nicer. He offered her jobs as a nanny at other people's homes. Could not have been nicer. Nothing sexual was ever brought up other than President Trump being transactional and being nice and trying to get her work. Okay, so the problem is, go on, as these things are being released, and this is the whole problem with how this is being released, or how you could take out how people are going to take out how they want to take out of things, but everything can't have the disclaimer at the end. President Trump had nothing to do with it, nor was he ever. And in fact, right, I think it was Guthrie's lawyer, who said President Trump was the only one who cooperated with us. When we called him on the phone, he was the only person that did this. So I don't know if you release all the files that matters. If not, this is such a crap show that will never end.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned these. First of all, you're talking about what, 20,000 pages of documents that are
Yeah,
being released.
CNN's Michael. Okay, sorry. CNN's favorite thing is They found those 3, but you know what? Because of course they found those 3. They're like, "We're still combing through the other 20."
I mean, when you are cherry picking documents for headline value without context, I fail to see how people can't see through this unless they don't want to. Unless the word Epstein, like the dog whistle to all the idiots that still think it means something. And I understand, I don't mean Mend, I'm not talking about you. I know you want justice and all of that. What I'm talking about when people make this their whole identity, right? I'm pro Trump, I'm pro MAGA, I'm pro this, I'm pro that, but only if Epstein, et cetera, et cetera. That stuff. When you are seeing this, this is the epitome of bad faith. This is the epitome of being selective in what you're putting out there. Imagine 20,000 documents and I found a sentence and I've given it to you out of context, not within the context of the 20,000 pages, but what is going to smell the worst when I put it on the front page of the newspaper. It's just a political weapon. It's
Well,
silliness.
here's the bottom line. As Judah pointed out, the number one Jeffrey accuser was Virginia Dufresne. And she came out and said that she did meet Trump and he was a perfect gentleman and never wanted anything from her, not involved in any of the sex and pedophilia and all that other
Right,
stuff.
she named Jeffrey Epstein.
That's the bottom line. If there were
Is that
other
how you
people
pronounce her
involved,
name? I'm sorry that I mispronounced it. I always get confused how you
I
pronounce
believe
her
it's
name.
Virginia Dufresne.
Okay, God, it took
That
me
was
forever
okay.
to learn how to say Ghislaine.
Yeah, Ghislaine, it's Ghislaine. The bottom line is when people are talking about for the release of the documents, and this is where it gets all murky and muddy, I don't care about a document in an email where Epstein emails his lawyer and says, hey, try to get some money out of Trump or something like that. That means nothing. The documents that we care about that we would like to see released would be the ones that detail sexual offenses by men against underage girls at Jeffrey Epstein Island. If that is the case, if that does exist, that's what we want to see. I could care less if there's an email between a Epstein guy and some other guy that mentions a third guy. That's immaterial. It doesn't mean anything, and it's a distraction. So you're seeing the Democrats and a lot of Trump haters out there running with this nonsense. Trump, look, he was at a party with Epstein. That means nothing. Again, it means nothing. I want to see hard evidence of pedophiles, and I want to see those people locked up, put behind bars. That's what I care about. I don't care about all this, the grandstanding and theater that all these people are using and the Democrats are using and the Republicans are. Don't care about any of it.
But they're also using it all selectively. Naomi
Of course.
Campbell's in those documents. Alec Baldwin, Leonardo DiCaprio, all of these random people
I
are in.
believe
Bill
Baldwin might
Clinton.
allegedly be a
But what
slight
you're making a joke. But in all
yeah.
seriousness, we could do that with every one of the names. So Donald Trump. Donald Trump's the one we're after. Okay, go ahead and grab that one sentence out of 20,000 pages. We'll put that on the front page. President Trump. There we go. What about all the other names? No. We're not after them. So we don't have to be selective. That's all it is.
I think whatever is there they have should be released. And when you go through that, like they did with the Twitter files, you pull out the bad guys, you find out who they are, and you expose them. That would be great. Or if the DOJ has all those videotapes of everyone who committed acts at Epstein Island or at his Manhattan house, which they say was wired to the T. It had cameras hidden everywhere. Get the evidence. Start having a perp parade where people come out in handcuffs. You pull them out in handcuffs. I don't care if it's the head of a giant hedge fund or if it's some deal maker or a professor at some university. We know Noam Chomsky went to his island a few times, I
I
believe.
love how they, by the way, my favorite thing, by the way, is they love to bring up Ehud Barak as like, the former Ehud Barak, for
Megyn
people that aren't
Kelly
familiar.
sure mentioned it twice.
Yeah, just so people know, Ehud Barak has become pure evil. And I'm not saying that he is an absolute leftist, former, obviously,
I
prime
don't care
minister.
what political party that guy belongs to.
But
If he
this is
participated in it, lock him up.
meant it's important though, because when people want to use the Israel reference, Ehud Barak is not part of this government.
But it
Okay,
doesn't matter. I don't think that they care whether it's the government. They're saying there's someone out there or Dufresne said that it was a former prime minister. We don't know which former prime minister it was, but we do know that there was a former prime minister named Ehud Barak who visited Epstein Island. And if that guy's guilty, lock him up. Lock him up along with the rest of them.
But remember again, because we got to be careful.
I would go there, by the way. For
I'm
that.
saying us. We have to be careful how we phrase these things because people come to us for information. So when we say visited Epstein Island, It does not mean they visited the cabanas where the little girls were. It could mean they went there for, as we know, many conferences were held on this island. We also know there was an entire side of the island that was just a vacation spot, a real one. Stephen Hawking went there for not to play with little girls. He went there for a science conference. These
I don't know if we
Epstein
know that for
Island,
sure. Stephen Hawking, he
Stephen
was there. He may have
Hawking,
been
look,
participating.
I saw the movie, stuff doesn't work right. But
Okay,
the point
I don't
is
think these
that
people
us
need their stuff
just
to work
simply
right. They're just
saying,
sickos.
yeah, but the thing is, us just simply saying he visited Epstein Island is
Diddy,
as bad
Diddy
as
would
what they're doing.
Diddy, that sicko, would pay people to rape his girlfriend. Diddy was paying
Was it on
his
Epstein Island?
no, no, no. But I'm just saying
Okay,
that
just checking.
sometimes these people are so sick, they don't even have to be the ones doing it. They get off from watching someone else doing it.
listen,
I don't understand it. They're
we're
sick in the
veering
head.
we're veering way
All
off.
right. Moving on.
The reality is to what your point to what you're saying is release all the files and let the everything fall where it is. And I don't necessarily at this point disagree with you because I don't think there's any other way of this getting us past this is if they do release all the files. Just release the files. And just moving on to quickly, because yesterday you brought up something very interesting, go on, or both of you did, as far as intelligence, right? And Israel helping out so many countries with intel. I don't know if you saw today that Britain broke off its intel with the United States because,
Yes, yesterday I
or
mentioned it on
yesterday,
yesterday's show.
oh, you did? Because
Yeah,
they're
yeah, yeah.
upset about
The boats.
the boats. And I thought it just became
The
official
dumbest thing.
today.
No, I mentioned it on yesterday's show in the context of us talking about how we're seeing these people operating as bad actors. Right now, what the UK is doing, they're doing it to us, and they're doing it out of whether it's virtue signaling, whether it's because their handlers are paying them to do so. I mean, everything we have seen now enough to know that corruption runs real deep in a lot of these places. And if they're doing it to us, I can't believe we haven't already started doing it to them. So yeah, this is just another example of them, basically saying we don't respect the West, we don't respect the United States, and it's time that they feel what it means to not be respected in return.
It's important to note that the British have more intelligence in Central South America than America does. And that's because of all the British Virgin Islands and everything that we have down there, that they have down there. And they had, all these former colonies and all the islands that they colonized, and they had the assets on the ground for the last 200, 300 years, whatever. We relied on them. America relied on them. And now that America has designated these drug cartels as foreign terrorist groups, we are legally allowed to take them out. They are killing over 100,000 Americans every year by shipping fentanyl into the country, amongst other drugs. And America, under this administration, is finally doing something about it. And the woke Brits are saying, we don't want to share our intelligence with you because we think you're using it to kill the people that are killing over 100,000 Americans every year. So if Hegseth and Tulsi, our DNI, don't retaliate against the Brits, then they're complete losers and failures. We need to
It's
hit back
important to
really
point
strong.
out. It's important to point out too. Does I don't know if our listeners know what the Five Eyes are. Okay, this is an important thing. The Five Eyes is considered the closest intelligence sharing alliance on the planet. Okay, it's not NATO, it's not the EU, it's not like UN, it's all of that. It's five countries that basically function like one giant global intelligence agency. Okay, it comes to signal intelligence, and
Who is
you're
it?
talking about the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. Those five countries. And it has been that way for quite some time. It started after World War II. This is an incredibly important thing because basically it's like that new technology where everybody can see through each other's glasses. So you can see through trucks and you can see around corners. If you guys know what I'm talking about, this new Israeli invented intelligence. It's a similar thing where because those five countries are sharing the signal intelligence, you basically have a map of everywhere you need to see. What makes it so special is that it is selective amongst those groups, but it is raw signal intelligence. Everything can be seen there. They're developing spy technology, they're developing cyber, all sorts of stuff. So when the UK decides they are going to hold back information to the United States, it actually punctures a hole in the Five Eyes. And the Five Eyes, basically, without them functioning, you're talking about China, Iran, Russia, jihadist groups, cartels, cyber threats, all of those things become susceptible to all of that. It's a major problem, and it's something that isn't as simple as an ally screwing us over.
Well said. And just as we're doing the show, I'm not kidding about this. Republicans just released thousands of emails from the Epstein files. I'm not kidding. With reporters and New York Times and that guy Michael Wolff. And so they by the end of the week, I think everything will have been released if they keep on doing this back and forth.
It's great. Let's see what comes out.
I just wanted to say that I'm happy that we looked during the show that Republicans have released thousands. This is like a back and forth of insanity. Men wanted to talk about something though, which I think
I got a couple of things, huh?
what you just spoke about is extremely important for people to understand about the intelligence community. It's extremely important, and you know
And the
you
U.S.
have
needs to retaliate against the Brits for stopping the intelligence sharing that affects over 100,000 Americans, that kills over 100,000 Americans every year. There's a social account called Every 11 Seconds. Every 11 seconds, someone in the U.S. dies. And what's really tragic about it is there's a lot of teens, a lot of kids that go to a party, friend gives them one pill, and they never wake up. And it's the mom showing their daughter being silly, doing TikTok videos, dancing around just like any 14-year-old. And the next shot is of a grave, and it's that kid, and someone's entire life is shattered. And the idiot woke Brits won't share this because they value the lives of drug dealers more than American citizens. And I think the American, this administration must retaliate against them in a very forceful way. What we're seeing in general throughout the West right now is there's some countries that are taking immigration seriously. They're taking climate seriously. They're taking drugs and terrorism seriously. And that's countries like America. The climate stuff, we got out of this insane deal where we need to be penalized while the Chinese and Russians and Pakistanis can pollute all they want. That's not fair. We're not doing that. No more. Sorry. We're not going to go into debt so you guys get rich while you pollute and we cannot. Absolutely not. America is still producing 50% less pollution than we did 50 years ago because we switched to natural gas, and the insane Democrats want us to turn off fracking and stop using natural gas. They want everything to be wind and solar. They are absolutely unhinged, and it's not rooted in reality.
Well,
So
it's a great point to that. The last thing you just said of not being rooted in reality is where most people are. So, for instance, Dave Smith, just trigonometry, I have no idea why, but they decided to have Dave Smith on the show. And everything he talks about is not rooted in reality.
Well, he has a trick that he plays. His trick that he plays is you say, look, he'll say, there's too many civilians got killed in Gaza. And they'll say, well, according to modern warfare, the combatant to civilian death ratio in Gaza has been one of the lowest of any modern war in human history. We've never seen anything like this, where it's a 1-for-1 or 2-for-1 death ratio, where it's normally 8-to-1. 8 civilians usually get killed for every bad guy. And in this war, where the bad guys are hiding behind the civilians, for that death ratio to be 1-to-1 is unheard of. And he'll say, oh, I'm not talking about the laws of war. I'm saying morally. There are too many children got killed. Like, he shifts where he stands. And I haven't heard that episode yet. But Dave Smith is a dishonest, shifty MF.
But here's the point, though. The bigger point that I wanted to bring up, though, man, is and go on. We're America, okay? We're America, and we have to decide. And they brought up on the show, if we vacate certain places, there are people that are ready to jump into those places. That's just the reality. If we vacate, China will jump in, Russia will jump in. This is so. So, do you want to live in a world where China takes over, where Russia takes over? It's a big reason we fought the Korean War, was to stop the Russians, right? There's that alternative theory that if we don't go into Korea and Russia takes over, we're living in a very different world right now. And this idea that I was talking about yesterday, where we're so scared and we become so gun shy, is being used by these people to take away from American exceptionalism, to use Men's website. I don't think American exceptionalism just counts in America. It counts across the world.
But there's something else to note, and that is the way the Chinese did it and the way we were doing it up until now. The way we were doing it up until now is we were doling out billions, if not trillions of dollars through USAID and a lot of other programs where we just gave it away to these countries. The Chinese don't give it away. They're not giving away anything. They do loans. They do things where they get the money back and they get it back tenfold. So I do think we were doing it wrong, but I think there's a better way to do it where we closer emulate what China was doing without all of the debt traps. So when China gives a loan to some country to build a dam or build a power plant, they're making it back tenfold through interest and all their coercive mechanisms. We don't need to do that. We just need to be paid back and not just give it away for free to countries that hate us, which is what USAID was doing up until now. So it's not all or nothing, but I do see this administration doing it better than it's been done previously.
I agree with that 100%. And he has an issue with that, Golan. These grifts have a major issue with everybody but Qatar. Let's just be honest. It's everybody but Qatar, but they have zero.
They just don't mention Qatar. It's just not something they mention. It
They
doesn't
don't even know
exist
how to
for
say
them.
it or spell it. They don't know how to say it or spell it. But Golan, this idea that we're not who we are, you have to be out of your mind. And one last thing before I go to you. Have you ever noticed, it's like, remember there's the old joke that, before you preface anything, you have to say, I'm not a racist, but, right? Everything when it comes to America only or America, it's always prefaced by, I disagree with Israel, but so-and-so.
Right. Yeah,
No,
and
they say
this-
the Israeli
this-
government. Disagree with the Israeli government. Shut
It's
up.
always the preface to what they're about to say next.
Man,
They never just.
they've dropped that pretense, man. They don't
Anyways,
say government anymore. They just say Israel now. Soon, and by the way, half of them just say Jews. So the pretense keeps slipping away. And look, bottom line is this. I understand that certain people do not understand how the world works. I understand that certain people don't understand what happens if America retreats into itself like a turtle in its shell. Well, we're protected. Our hard shell is covering us. So are we all good now? But what happens to the rest of the world? And they say, well, I don't care what happens to the rest of the world. I'm America only. So the rest of the world doesn't matter. And okay, but then all those animals that are now poised over the turtle, ready to pry its shell open and eat the meat on the inside, you didn't know was happening because you've been hiding away inside your shell until the last second when the claws came inside. You know what happens when America retreats? The world gets dumber, the world gets darker, and the world gets more dangerous. There's really no other way to say that. Because to use the metaphor, if the United States are the adults in the room, everybody else are effing toddlers with knives. And so, we're going to go in the kitchen and close the door and hope the rest of the house remains standing. And also, at a certain point, like the raptors in Jurassic Park, they learned how to open doors. We're going to get screwed. Right? Because when you're talking about Russia, when you're talking about China, when you're talking about Iran, when you're talking about all these bad actors, it's not that they rise and fill the power vacuum like a statesman and then they take over. It's like black mold. It just keeps spreading until it eats everything else. And so if you are not there actually standing guard, right? And I'm not saying you have to go into every little skirmish that doesn't affect you. And I'm not saying you have to go into forever wars. I'm not a neocon or whatever word they decided to use instead of Jew. I am a Jew. But what I am saying is if you don't do something about it, it metastasizes. And the more you put your head in the sand, the more you wait until the cancer has taken over your entire body before you realize it. That's what happens when America retreats.
Yes.
Well said.
I want to jump into this thing.
I want to get into because I'm very excited. You taught me a new word today, which is black box with the pharmaceutical industry. And I had zero idea about what you were talking about. So if you could please tell us.
Yeah, let's do that. So in a landmark decision for the medical establishment, the FDA under Marty Makary is removing the black box warnings from a medicine called HRT. It's a hormone replacement therapy for menopause symptoms. The reversal is earning high praise from both the medical establishment and medical outsiders. These warnings were slapped on HRT for menopausal and perimenopausal women.
Perimenopausal, yeah.
Yeah, more than 2 decades ago by the FDA. The current FDA under Marty McCary, who's the commissioner, says that the warnings were unnecessary. They were harmful. It's really significant because currently fewer than 5% of menopausal women take HRT. Dr. McCary says that between 50 and 70 million women have been denied coverage or discouraged from taking this medicine as treatment since the study was mainstreamed. He says that the vast majority of those women were denied life-changing or even life-saving treatment. So what happened was there was a flawed study that came out about 20 years ago about this medicine, and that study caused the FDA at the time to place this black box warning on the medicine, which scared off a lot of people from taking it. And here's why it's so significant. The long-term health benefits for taking HRT, there's short-term and long-term profound benefits that you can get from taking this thing. Some of them are, it reduces the risk of bone fractures by 50 to 60% later in life. So a lot of people suffer from osteoporosis and things like that. 50 to 60% reduction. Reduces the risk of fatal heart attacks by 30 to 50%. That's the number one cause of death for women. And for some reason, a flawed study 20 years ago has prevented millions of women from taking this medicine that could have saved them from heart attack or death. And
the thing about flawed studies, it's a really important thing. It's something that I didn't know a lot about until my wife was pregnant with our first. And she said she wanted to have a water birth. And so I was like, water birth, let me look this up. Look it up, and I see the medical establishment says they do not recommend water births. And I was like, we're not doing a water birth. She's like, A, we are, F off, and B, what are you talking about? Why don't you actually do some research and find out why they said that? So I, being me, did a ton of research. And what I discovered was there's no reason. They have all sorts of theories, but because they haven't been able to replicate the exact conditions over and over again in exactly the same way, so they don't have what's technically known as a scientific control, the easiest thing is to just say, we don't recommend it. Now, ultimately, it's absolutely incorrect. And a similar thing happened here. They had this study. And in the study, and this is some men sent us, so I was able to look this up. I sat with my wife, actually, who's really into this stuff. And we looked it up. And what we saw was it's not, they said, oh, it's breast cancer, it's clotting, it's stroke, it's all of this stuff. And what they left out was there are ways to mitigate. There are also specific factors that are taken into consideration if, for instance, breast cancer, it's if you're using synthetic progestins, right? If you have long-term use, but if you're using natural progesterone and you're doing regular screenings, then the breast cancer is mitigated. There's all sorts of ways, but instead of even considering that there were mitigating factors, they just slapped this black box label on. A black box label, just for those of you who don't know, is basically a way of saying, this thing, you can use it, but be aware that if it goes wrong, it goes real wrong. The harm can be irreversible. And it's basically a way of saying to you, skull and crossbones.
And that could also be a way for insurance companies to deny coverage. I mean, there's a lot of other ramifications that could happen by slapping these warnings on certain medications. Dr. Marty McCary.
What I was saying to you, though, when we were talking about this, which I think is very important, is that we have to look at the totality of this type of stuff. So recently,
that's the next thing, is that what Dr. Marty McCary and Dr. Peter Artia, is a lot of health professionals that have come out, and they said that there's no medication in the modern era, aside for perhaps antibiotics and vaccines, that can improve the health outcomes of women on a population level more than hormone replacement therapy, if it started within 10 years of the onset of menopause. So this was something that could drastically affect the lives of women. For some reason, the FDA way back when labeled it as a black label. And now you have this current FDA, the leaders under the Trump administration are doing the right thing. And they are removing that. And hopefully a lot of women, their lives will be changed, if not saved, by taking this medicine.
I'm very glad you brought that topic up. We have to wrap it up.
I'm a huge woman advocate. Listen, I'm like the temple I go to is called Ahavas Nashim. We love women. Anyway, there's one more story that I wanted to get to.
You told me you have to wrap it up.
I do. I got to get my kid in 2 minutes. We're going to run the dog.
This story can't wait till tomorrow?
No,
because I actually want to get into this story.
Media Research Center did a study on a full month of the government shutdown, from October 1st to October 1st, and they looked at the evening broadcasts of the entire three major networks, ABC, CBS, and NBC, and they found that 87% of the network coverage was in fact biased against Republicans in favor of Democrats. And that is shameful. I mean, you would think that after
you make it like you need a study on that.
Yeah,
I could have
right.
told you that. I could have told you that before if you would have
Of
said to
course,
me.
but you would
by the
think
way, you understand
every-
it's way more than 85%. 85% is what when they're looking at people who are meant to be nonpartisan. Those
Yes.
people who
Yeah,
are
yeah,
partisan,
yeah.
you add that onto it, it's like
Forget it.
96%.
Right,
Forget it.
Fox News, minus Fox News from that coverage, it would be 99.8%.
Yeah, you're right.
Horrific,
Well, this was
coverage.
CBS, ABC, and NBC, and they just saw that there was
But you repeat
crazy
yourself.
bias, and it wasn't by it was by actual news broadcasters, not opinion pieces and all that. You take all that into account, yeah, you're right. It's 99% going in favor of the Democrats.
Minus Fox News, which is minuscule.
Well, they didn't
when you-
take Fox News into the thing. They just said CBS, ABC, and NBC.
So yeah, again, I love when they do certain studies about, and I love media. Brett Brozel's former company or whatever it is that does these studies about bias and all of that stuff. And yeah, this is something Republicans have been up against for many years. And this is why we have the podcast movement. It was the overcorrection of legacy media. And I say overcorrection because it wasn't a correction. It was an overcorrection in the market. And I encourage everybody, do your due diligence. Read, pick up a book, search, okay? Don't take what people are saying at face value. These people are not your friends, okay? I don't mind saying this, Golan. I was looking at Steve Bannon. The Google Dolls had a great line in one of their songs, and I always remembered it, and it helped me get sober because it was a line in one of their songs that said, "See the young man sitting at the old man's bar, waiting for his turn to die."
Mm-hmm.
And I look at Steve Bannon doing his show. He looks, I mean, I might look disheveled, but he looks like he just got off a bender. Okay. And he literally looks like I
He's
just
a
want
mess.
people to get
the
this
guy is a
graphic.
mess.
I want people to put this image in their head. Steve Bannon probably sleeps in the war room. Okay.
And that book you're talking about that people should go out and read, go read Atlas Shrugged. Everybody should read Atlas Shrugged. If you want to know where this socialism train goes, where it heads to, Atlas Shrugged or The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand, something every American,
Listen, you can read books by Milton Friedman. There's a ton about
being
the
very
economy.
specific. Atlas Shrugged, go out and get it.
Yeah, I would also encourage people to read Uncle Milty on his views on the economy. But go on. This has gotten out of control. Mend, if you need to leave, we'll see you in a bit.
I'm going to jump out. Thank you, guys.
Remember to turn off your camera. But go on, getting back to it.
Yeah, go ahead.
There was an overcorrection that was done, and then it just needed to be a correction. I guess this happens with everything, but this is a really frightening time when you're looking on X. I didn't want to necessarily start the show today, but I think we handled it very well, how we dealt with the H-1 visas, because this is going to spin out of control, and the White House is not going to be able to figure out a way how to.
Well, you mentioned it earlier, and we don't have to rehash it too much, but their messaging is not working right now. Their timing has not been great. The way people are jumping on it as a means to bludgeon the White House and bludgeon Trump, and all the bad actors who are pushing people in the wrong direction. This is a perfect storm that is not going to end well unless someone takes control of this thing. I think between Mend and myself, we explained what this is about, what the H-1B visas are about, why they are important, which ones aren't important. And it's really as simple as explaining that. And it's not that hard. This isn't one of those over-explainy type of things. It's really simple. And so if people can get their head out of their ass and actually listen for a moment instead of just running to their partisan corners and trying to get likes on TikTok, they might actually learn something and they might actually chill out about it.
And look, this is a Fox News story today. Trump's backing H-1 visa program exposes cracks within the MAGA movement. Marjorie Taylor Greene says she's America first and America only after the president's comments on foreign workers. And it's.
I'm so tired of Marjorie Taylor Greene.
No, I know, but this is the battle. This is the war. We're battling facts and we're battling ideas.
Have you ever seen the movie Being There with Peter Sellers? He plays Chauncey the gardener, who they think is Chauncey Gardner. He's a mental retard who basically everything he says about plants, if you plant a seed in the dirt, it will grow into a tree. And they're like, That's a metaphor about the economy. This guy's a genius. And they make him president. So that's Marjorie Taylor Greene. I can't believe that we have to have any conversations about this mental retard, this mental midget who is out there paid off, most likely, just shooting her mouth off in a revenge tour. I'm going to quote AOC in this case. And we actually have to have a conversation about it? What are we wasting our time for? Holy shit.
Yeah, I agree with you, but that's sadly where we are. And
You know what I'd rather talk about? Thank you, Kim Kardashian, for opening 15 stores in Israel of your Skims undergarment brand. Good for you. I believe that you are now the moral arbiter of the world. So this is the world we live in now.
I had no idea.
I'm praising Kim Kardashian, and I have to talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Hey, the other day I
Good
praised
night,
Nick
everybody.
Fuentes. The other day I praised Nick Fuentes for being
That's right. The Zionist, Nick Fuentes.
For being correct. Okay, on that note, Golan, I'm really glad to see you looking healthy. You look good. You look fantastic. Oh, and we will rectify whatever happened on the Rumble show. I don't know why the old video was playing, why Monday's video was playing yesterday. It was a Rumble issue. Okay, on that note, we want to thank everybody that's been listening and following and downloading and everything. And you can find us everywhere at thedailycheatsheet.com. That is thedailycheatsheet.com. I want to wish everybody a good morning, afternoon, and night world, wherever you are. God bless you all.